Welcome to Compression, the quest to $100 million in just 1 year. Join me, your host, Logan Freeman, in this one-of-a-kind interactive podcast experience where I am on a quest to compress 3 years of achievement and production into 12 months. And no, the answer is not to just work harder. I'm bringing you not only ideas and concepts that are complete at the theoretical level, but they're also effective at the applied level. Look, guys, knowledge is not power. It is potential power. Knowledge plus massive strategic action equals power. We're talking about strategy, systems, accountability, all in real time. This is Compression.
And we're back with another episode of the Compression Podcast. We've got Logan Freeman here. We're at the end of January, and we've made more progress towards the goal. This is is it 6.2 or 6.8?
6.8.
6.8. I didn't want to shortchange him any. He's making a ton of progress. I think a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we were at 4.2. So, guys, we are making our way to that 100 million in a single year. So Logan, it's been a phenomenal week for me. You know, I've been hitting it hard. I woke up one morning, it was snow on the ground. We still got out. This morning it was 24 with a wind chill down to 16. We still got out. We're not letting the conditions hamper or damper us.
Yep.
And I know you aren't either. So what's been going on this week, man? What is the intention? What were the things we were working on so we can dive in and see if we can get the thing going the way it's supposed to?
Yeah. You know, we talk a lot about, and we were kind of mentioning this, you know, before we started recording was, you know, this is going to sound redundant to a lot of folks, but, you know, redundancy and repetition is what solidifies a lot of these actions. And so, you know, the things that we are working on this week is to continue to create habit triggers around temperance and asking myself, would the best version of myself do that next action? And this started to come into play this week because, you know, I am obsessed with Lindor chocolates. Anybody ever tried a Lindor chocolate?
Those are good, man. Those are good.
And they are so good because they keep coming out with new flavors. And, you know, my beautiful wife brought home a new bag of strawberry cream, you know, Lindors. And, you know, I'm not the no sugar guy, but I don't need a bunch of sugar, right? So here's what happened. I went in, I had my one Lindor for, you know, I have one every 2 days, my man, okay? One every 2 days.
That's discipline there, brother.
Yeah, and the whole bag, there's 2 bags of them in the pantry, right? The beer is not in the fridge necessarily, but, you know, the chocolates are. And so, you know, long story short, you know, I had my one and I was like, oh man, I started feeling those good feelings. I started feeling all that yummy, you know, that yummy flavor. I was like, I got to have another one, you know, like just falling into that trap. And then I went to the pantry. It's a really kind of a pain in the rear to open that door. And so I opened that door, started to reach, and then boom, it happened. It said, hey, Logan, would the best version of yourself have that second one? Have that third one? So I stopped. But then it was also like, hey, it's only 60 calories. Hey, you know, it tastes so good. But at the end of the day, man, I didn't grab the second one. I've been able to be implementing some moderation around some of those other things. And, you know, that's a big win for me this week. But that's what I was working on was really trying to put these habit triggers and asking myself, you know, before I take that action, would the best version of myself do that? So that was my first thing I was working on. The second thing I was working. Did you want to talk about that?
Well, I just, people may, what are you guys talking about? Like, why are you talking about chocolate?
Yeah.
Like, we're supposed to be talking about real estate here. And guys, you got to get this, right? It's how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
If you can make these micro promises to yourself and keep them, it allows you to build up this bank so that when the ask or the promise gets bigger, that you have the confidence of knowing that you can actually do it. And I know we've hit on this point before, but I don't think people hear this enough. They think, oh, well, I can cheat over here and it'll be okay over here when it really counts. And that's just not true.
Right.
You're either a person of discipline and you exhibit that discipline in the different situations you put yourself in or not.
Yeah.
And you slide down the slippery slope by just getting okay with it. And to take a really extreme example, right? When they talk about pedophilia, they'll talk about, hey, well, the person just kind of was sitting on the bench beside you, and then they put their arm around you, and then they put their arm on your back, and then it was under your shirt, and then it was in your pants, and it was progressive. They didn't just go do the thing up front. And so when you can tame yourself and make yourself do the things that you say you want to do, it allows you to boost that self-esteem and confidence. And guess what? There's always somebody watching.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're willing to state that these are your values, beliefs, morals, desires, and then you do stuff to the contrary of it, that's when people stop believing in you. And the people who are in your home and your friends and the people closest to you are going to be the mirrors that show that back to you. And so if you are wondering why you don't have the support of your spouse or your kids or your friends, it's because you aren't exhibiting the behaviors that it's going to take in order to be successful at it. So I'm sorry for the rant, but I didn't want them to miss that point.
Yeah, no, I think it's a strong one and one that needs to be reiterated week after week. No matter where you go, there you are. No matter where you go, there you are. So the second thing I was working on, I must get done this week, was make Taylor feel loved and supported and special and beautiful. And frankly, we did a great job on that so far. It's only Friday, so I still got a couple days. But, we had a date night last night. We're planning out the mini vacation, which is actually a large vacation for March. So if anybody knows, I'm turning 31 in March, on March 22nd, and we are going to go to Florida, and we're going to spend a little bit of time with the family in the sun, get away from this cold weather, and go get on some sunny beaches. So very excited about that. And that was one thing that I needed to get done this week. You're going to hear me talk a lot about that because 1 and 2 are usually going to be faith and family. And the third thing, man, that I was working on this week is get a plan in place for the marketing and sales funnel for FTW. So I've got a finalized proposal from a great vendor. I'm also working with another gentleman that I have a call right after this call with, and I've got buy-in from the other partners. It's in the budget. We're ready to get moving forward on it. And so just making that final push to get the right vendor in place, get it built, and then continue to refine on that. So I know it's been a long time coming for me, but I really wanted to understand the mechanics, make sure the person that I'm working with, we can work on future projects together. We can get a lot of our active campaign syndication pro all tied together. So just making sure that a lot of these things have automation, which we use a lot of Zapier and all these different things. If somebody fills a list out here, they're automatically populated there, which is giving me time back and our executive assistant time back throughout our day. So that's not done yet, but it will be done. And I took the necessary actions that we needed to do. So very excited about that, man. This week didn't really feel necessarily like a very, producing week because we're finishing up the actual documents and accepting capital into our business for the closing for next week. So it didn't necessarily feel like I was out there ruffling feathers and doing things like that. I kind of had to pivot to, herding the cattle, so to speak, and making sure everybody's feeling good about the investment and we're getting all the documents the right way. And, if anybody's ever gone through an equity raise, that's never an easy process. It just isn't. Just because somebody pushes reserve on your portal does not mean that they are ready to invest. I want people to hear that and know that we're working on our 16th syndication now. And each one has felt a little bit like I played orthodontist or dentist and they're pulling some teeth every once in a while. But I embrace it, Jerome, because this is their hard-earned money and they want to make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. It's my job to be that crossing of T's and that dotting of I's for somebody. So, I take that seriously. So that this week didn't necessarily feel like I was out there prospecting a whole bunch. It was more kind of focusing on the deal in hand and working on some systems in the business, which, you always ask me, what are those high value tasks? Those are the high value tasks for the week. So those are the 3 things I was focused on this week.
Beautiful. So my big question, man, is This is the first I heard of the marketing and sales funnel in any real detail. So let's talk about the big goal associated with that and what you want to get out of it. And then how the proposal actually meets that need. So kind of give me the problem and then give me what you think the bridge or the solution is to the new state.
Yeah. So, the problem is twofold. I do a great job with the traffic piece of the triangle. Okay. So at the bottom, you've got traffic. At the top, you've got conversion. And at the other side of the bottom, you have economics. And the economics piece is what we're working on with Donald Miller and StoryBrand and the brand script. What does somebody get when they invest with you? What are the economics of that? So telling that story better is always an iterative process. The traffic piece comes from podcasts. It comes from LinkedIn. It comes from referrals. It comes from all these different things. We do a pretty decent job with traffic piece of new people reaching out. Where we have been failing is the conversion part of this recipe, because the conversion in the past and right now still hinders on my time spent with those folks. And so the goal of the funnel or the masterclass that we are creating is to create a 60-minute webinar that really helps people understand a few different questions. Why commercial real estate? Why private placements? Why Kansas City? And why FTW investments? And out of that, our goal is to help people understand all of those things. Once you watch the webinar, you're then going to get, an email series based on, your engagement in that webinar to say, look, this is kind of who you are or who you've designated that you are, what level of sophistication you are. And then content is going to be, I guess the term is, dripped on them to help kind of convert them over to being an investor and being on that first call or that second call with me. So really trying to replace me in the process and magnify the fact that, hey, we have great content that you can digest only to the folks that went to that webinar and spent some time there. And then when the time is right, then you get the schedule a call with Logan button, instead of that being the first button that you can get up at the front of the funnel when you probably should have been converted before you get there. So it's magnifying my time is the main reason for that, but also showing, the competency and clarity that we have here in our market.
Okay. So what is the vendor going to do for you guys? Because the copy can be tough. You've already got a killer website. Somebody asked me for examples of websites. Yours and one other I sent as examples of best-in-class websites for people who are raising money right now. The webinar, are they filming it? Or are you just putting the videos together? How does this process work? Because what I've found as I've gone on this journey myself is that most people aren't comprehensive solutions. Mm-hmm. Right. And they don't tell you what they don't, right? They're very specific in what they do. They don't tell you what else you need in order to have a complete solution.
Sure.
And so let's talk a little bit about that to make sure your proposal has everything in it that you need, one. And then two, if there are gaps, can we negotiate that into the price that you already have, or do you have to source outside?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess the first piece is, actually writing the presentation. Right. And getting the presentation put together. We have a lot of great content. We have a lot of great resources, but a lot of them are very comprehensive in the sense that nobody's going to read a 130-page venture plan that I put together. What they will do is potentially look at 2 slides with us talking about those pieces. So the actual presentation is one piece of it. The second piece is building the actual landing page and getting the video up there, as well as all of the copy that goes on the landing page and the email series afterwards. So breaking out the video that we create into smaller snippets and then writing every single email based on that. And then the third piece that I kind of added into this proposal was getting this set up in ActiveCampaign for us, and then going into our 1,400 people that we have in our ActiveCampaign right now, which is our list, and tagging and segmenting people in that list as newbies, as sophisticated, as current investors, as all of these, or as a vendor, a joint venture partner. So making sure that the current database gets taken care of and gets certain segmented type of content. So that's kind of what the proposal is for right now, at least.
Okay. And so they're writing everything for you. You don't have to write. You just have to get recorded. That's that right. Okay.
Yep. Now they're not going to do any of the video editing, but we have resources to help us with that.
Okay. And then the nurture campaign is what I call it, where you're introducing them.
Yes.
They're writing all that copy in your voice? Because here's the big risk, right? Mm-hmm. In the trust business, they see you on LinkedIn, they come to the website, they opt in. You want them to learn more about you as if they went and listened to podcast episodes or whatever. And it's not so much you, but the company, right?
Right.
If those emails don't feel like you wrote them, since you're the face of the organization,
sure,
there's a disconnect. There's immediate distrust and confusion about whether or not they should move forward because it just doesn't feel right. It's kind of icky. So you guys got to make sure that even if they're doing it, that it's got to be written in your voice, and it's got to be your voice since you're the face, at least for now, right?
Yeah.
And then introducing the other people, I guess, in the webinar makes sense. The last thing do you know how many emails they're going to drip?
Yes, it's all broken out, and we have talked through it. I don't know the numbers exactly what they are. But yeah.
I would just offer 5 is probably too short, and 10 is probably too long.
I think she said it was 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Make sure that it's more than 5, because some people will give you 3 and tell you you're good, but nobody knows you after 3. And I think the last thing worth talking about there is you need to train them to click buttons.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
And people may say, "Oh, he said train." They need to click. If they don't click, they're not actually engaged.
Right.
Right. And you really want that nurture sequence to have open rates over 40%. People will try to tell you, "Oh yeah, it's amazing. You got a 20% open rate." That's not amazing. That's not people who are warm and opted into the thing. What's the lead magnet? What gets them on the list? Why would they go through the webinar? Or like, what are you driving them to? What's the call to action?
Well, I mean, I think the first one is that they already fill out a form, and we don't have a lead magnet at all on our website. So these are either organic or referrals. So they're somewhat, I guess, what I'll say, warmed up. We don't have something out there grabbing. That would be the next step. So this goal right now is taking the current investors that I have added over the last 12 months and putting them through it. After we refine that, then creating the lead magnet that we can go put some marketing and advertising dollars to. But I want to get it right first before we spend money on advertising. And so, yeah. And so that was the thought.
I'm not signaling or trying to suggest advertising at this point, but my thought is, so back to the cohesive thing, that lead magnet has to flow to the webinar, right?
Right.
And so all of that messaging has to be cohesive throughout. And, it's, some people take the approach of it's a snake, right? So what's the first thing that's in a snake's mouth? It's the lead magnet, and then you take them through the digestive tract, which is the webinar, the nurture sequence, and all that other stuff. So as you're going through this, just think what would be cool, even if it's just, hey, it's a PDF of some type. Okay, great. Yep. Now what's the content of that? And the comparison between the competition back to, Kansas City, FTW, the only thing that's missing in the overall funnel is the deal, right? You're addressing everything but the deal. And now we're introducing the deal with a webinar. So all of that is super solid, because now your webinars go from, hey, it's me, Corey and Parker, to, hey, you know us, you've been around. If you haven't met us, you're probably in the wrong place, and you're probably not going to invest with us anyway. Here's the deal that we've got, and here's our track record on the other stuff. And so I think that's going to be amazing. And I've seen you do this on the phone, right? You're not taking cold calls anymore. I remember, what was it? It was probably a year ago when you were cold calling people. I was like,
oh yeah, yeah,
you don't do that
every day.
You're cold calling still?
No, I was. Yeah, no.
No,
not anymore.
It shouldn't be happening. And so seeing that, and this is just going to warm them up so much, man. I think your opt-in rate, your subscriptions, and then the actual funding, that's the piece, right? Like it's easy to click the button and say subscribe, but when the wire hits, and anybody who's actually done a raise knows this, right? Just because somebody says they're going to give you money doesn't mean they're going to give you money.
That's exactly right.
So This gets more trust. If I know you got this because you reference it a lot, but make sure some of the stuff from Dreek's book is in that sequence, right? Sure. Talking about the future with the vesting. Make sure that you're like pulling in the trust factors, because that'll go a super long way.
Awesome.
But yeah, if I've done a ton of research on the funnels, and if you want me to take a second look at that stuff when you get to the place, just
absolutely.
One over. I'm more than willing to dive in on that and give you some questions to ask and make sure that you guys are covered, because the most frustrating thing that I've done was buy incomplete solutions. And not be told that, oh, you got to do that too. Or having any idea that, that was the next step. So
I will absolutely. Maybe we'll do an episode when we get the funnel built, just going through it specifically. I think that would be very helpful for people. Just kind of bringing them through, man. Hey, this is exactly how you build a business. And, we've done a good job on a certain aspect of it, but we failed on another one. And so we're working to solve that right now. So I'd love to do a full episode just on that, man.
Okay, good.
So some of the wins from last week, recalibrating those daily disciplines. We talked a little bit about this on the monthly episode, but, I have no problem drinking 4 of these a day anymore. So, that needs to go away. I'm actually drinking 6 or 8 of those a day. So, anyways, long story short, I'm using the restroom a lot, and I'm staying hydrated. I'm staying energized. I have less mental fatigue. I have less headaches, all of those things. And I'm not getting sick, knock on wood, but I'm not getting sick. So this is
your skin's shining. You got the glow. You got the prosperity glow. That's the water glow, man. Nobody.
There it is, man. Yeah.
You tell Taylor, what'd she tell you to put that scrub stuff on you?
Right, man. Exfoliate.
Yeah.
Exfoliate. Yeah. So, that was a big win, was recalibrating. So I put some new ones on there. A tough one for me is the get 7 hours worth of sleep. I do think I will get 3 of those out of my 7 this week, which I'm, hey, it's way better than last week. But I replaced the water with the sleep. I just have really dialed in. When I get 6.5 to 7 hours, man, I feel so much better than when I get that 5 and 4.5. I saw that you had 4 hours and 16 minutes last night, and woo, my goodness, buddy.
But you didn't look at 2 days ago. I had 2.5.
Holy cow. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a different, we'll do a podcast just on that sometime. But, I had some great networking this week, Jerome. Really, really solid networking here in Kansas City. And I don't mean networking via Zoom and all of that. That's a given. What's happening now is the momentum is translating into my own market with really top level people. Yeah. Had a breakfast meeting this morning. A guy's moving here to Kansas City. And he's got, 300 to 400 million to place. Okay. So that's the type of relationships that are kind of starting to come to fruition, which is, really, really exciting. Obviously, taking those steps to getting a personal assistant. I voiced that opinion to the team over at FTW. And I think that we had an idea of bringing another kind of assistant on in April. And we're going to, fast track that hopefully to March. We're going to share some resources between FTW and Live Free. So it's not going to be as expensive to me, and I can go get a really good person for us. So took the steps to that. I talked to a recruiter that focuses only on assistants, and just kind of talked through their process and things like that as well. And started thinking about the tasks that would be on that person's plate, and continuing to move towards that, right? So we talked a lot about that on the monthly episode. Here's another big win is clients are starting to come back in town, which, when clients start coming in town, transactions start to roll, and, that means business, right? So that was a big win because we had clients in town today, yesterday, another one coming in on Monday, and the next week as well. So just have a lot of people coming into town. That's usually mostly on the brokerage side of things, which is going to be another big topic sometime this year to talk through. my idea on where I will stand on the brokerage side of things very soon. So I'm not ready to unveil that yet, but that is coming. The feelings are starting. So I'm taking note of them. I'm writing them down. I'm saying, hey, this keeps coming up. This keeps coming up. This keeps coming up. Yeah. You keep talking about, the 20% that leads to the 80%. What are you messing with the 1% for? So anyways, that's some big wins from this league, man. The losses, this is a big one. It took me 3 or 4 days this week to get my heart rate down. And, my resting heart rate usually is somewhere between 56 and 61. But I also have a metric called average heart rate, which takes into account my workout, which is fine. But then it also takes into account what is your heart rate throughout the day. And I felt literally Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this week, I could feel my heart. It was like hurting, like it's pumping blood and that was anxiety ridden. And I said, enough. We need to work through this. Let's sit down and figure it out. I haven't felt that Thursday or Friday. So that's good. And the process I went through to do that was fear setting. What's the worst thing that can happen if what you keep allowing your heart to pump on actually happens? After I went to the dark place and came back, I said, hey, it's no problem.
It's not that big of a deal.
Problem. So, that was a loss for me because I let that happen kind of 2.5 to 3 days. Here's an interesting one that kind of came out to this, fruition this week is, man, I haven't wanted to work out this week. I usually really love working out, but I have been resisting picking up the kettlebell. I have, resisting getting my workouts in, all of those things. And so frankly, that's a loss because I haven't been allowing myself enough time in my schedule to get those things done. So I wrote that one down, and then I love having my date nights with Taylor, obviously, but I realized that the date night is my trigger, and my trigger of, hey, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. And I'm going to have, I'm going to have a couple cocktails and, all of these things. So we always talk about triggers, and I'm like, okay, well, when you're going out to date night, maybe you fast in the morning, maybe you do certain things because you're going to eat more, but also realize that date night's a trigger, but it's an opportunity to spend time with Taylor, not an opportunity to eat like a jerk. You know what I mean?
Lose your discipline. And, one of the things that you're working on that may even help here is increasing your water consumption even more on that day. So you're full, right?
Absolutely.
You just don't have the capacity. And then, if you don't have the capacity, I've always asked that if I'm going to make the wrong choice, then take the choice away from me so I don't make the wrong choice. And, if your stomach's full or you force, hey, I got to have 2 bottles of water or a bottle of water at dinner before I do the other stuff. It may just the substitution is the game, right? Substitute the poor behavior with something that is going to serve you.
So here's my biggest loss for this week is everybody knows I'm a big positive guy. I work on myself a lot. I stay joyful all the time. I have feelings of inadequacy this week. And I'm going to dive into that on the learnings here, but that was a big loss for myself. I did not allow myself to let go. I felt many times this week that, things should have been done or could have been done better. And I allowed myself to go to, well, maybe you're not, just that inadequacy feeling. And, to me, that really stems from a few things. And so I always tell myself all the time, do not compare yourself to others. Okay. Right. I don't have a problem comparing myself to others, but here's the learning here, man, is how about when you compare yourself to your own standard for yourself? And this is where my feelings of inadequacy have been coming from, because I have unrealistic expectations in certain areas of my life that I have not allowed myself to just grow into, thinking I should already be there. And so it's not that I'm comparing against others. I'm comparing myself against my even better self, so to speak, without being patient. And so to me, the same feeling comes, right? Whenever you compare yourself to others and you start down that track, I don't, like I said, I don't have that problem per se, but I'm getting the same result because I'm doing it against some other version that doesn't realistically exist. And I know that's kind of probably confusing, and hopefully we can unpack that a little bit, but that was a huge learning for me this week. I don't know what to do with that yet, but I thought that was a big loss and a big, obviously a big growth opportunity for me.
Yeah, I struggle with the thought that it's a loss, but that's probably just the way I frame stuff.
Yeah.
But if you're ready to go down the rabbit hole, I'm ready to go because I think there's a lot here. So the fixation on the destination is the thing that gets us in trouble more than anything else.
Yep.
The destination is not real.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sure, you get to this place, but whenever you get there, because you're a compressor, there's going to be the next thing, right? You're climbing the mountain and then you're going to see a higher peak. So you're going to go climb another peak.
Sure.
So if that is how you live your life, you will perpetually be dissatisfied, frustrated, confused, irritated, because it's like, I'm never there. And it's the gain in the gap. You have to create the gap in order to gain, right? Or grow. The thing that is important is the essence and the progress towards the place where you're going. And you don't like doing this, but there's tremendous value in it. The look back on how far I've come.
Yeah.
The thought about what I've done to get to where I am. And my man Goggins says, what if you had to grow legs?
Yeah.
Right? You grew legs so that and now you're running faster than them, right? Like, we forget that in our desire to get to that next place. And that piece right there for you, because you've achieved so much so fast.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what leads to impatience, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've already done this. So like, why can't I get to the next thing? But the thing that happens, and this goes to the discipline conversation we had earlier, it's good that we talked about those Lindor chocolates, right?
Yep.
So you create there's a cycle, and you and I disagree on one piece of the cycle, but there's a cycle where you do the thing, right? And then you get that feedback, and that feedback says, I can do more. And so now you've got the courage to take action to make something else happen. And what happens if there is friction is you get frustrated because this should be effortless. This shouldn't be a problem. This should just flow. This should just go.
Right.
Why is there friction in this? And when you actually identify what is the source of the friction, that's where you actually learn, right? And this goes to a couple of things you guys have going on. For instance, the funnel, right? There's friction in the funnel. People who are coming through aren't converting and becoming investors. So we got this list, but the percentages that we want to see convert aren't converting. So what do we need to do in order to fix that? The friction is what shows you what's not operating optimally. And for some things, for some people, they confuse that with their success. And your risk is that you're achievement based, right? Yeah. The achievements is what make you feel worthy. They make you feel loved. That's the way that you've gained the affection and appreciation of those around you your entire life. And so anytime that you don't have some success to hold up and say, we did it, it makes you extremely uncomfortable. But the thing that you don't accept is that you're trying to do bigger things than you were doing before.
Right. Absolutely.
And not even trying, you're doing them. It just takes a little bit of time to grow. And one of my favorite graphics is, how long is a human baby in gestation versus a horse baby versus an elephant baby? The bigger the animal, the longer the gestation period.
Right.
It's just not ready yet.
Sure.
You got to go through the process. You got to go through the labor. It's just, some of that stuff takes time. Mm-hmm. And when you add on top the anxiety with the raise and the challenges and struggles from the past week, it's easy to go to the place of, hey, nothing's working.
Yep.
Right. And if you focus on that, then you'll absolutely feel like nothing's working.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that we've talked about over the past year that I think is like really important is the fact that you don't celebrate, right? It's like it's supposed to be done and you move on to the next thing. When you take the celebration out of the loop, then when you meet the friction, you don't have anything to come back to remember. The celebration isn't like, oh, well, we're just doing nothing. The celebration is to memorialize that in your cookie jar, your mental cookie jar, that good things happen and good things will continue to happen. And I just have to get to the next thing. It's just time, just a little more time, just a few more steps. And so, does it have to be something big and elaborate? Do you have to go get a trophy? I don't think so. But what I do think is that will help you in some way, shape, or form, right? And it's just the reminder. Celebration. Yeah. And I used to be that way, right? It was, I went 7 years with doing nothing, right? And literally was just like, it's supposed to happen. This is what I do. That I deliver. I get results. We don't just do things. And what I realized is that it's the pursuit that is actually the thing. The person that you have to grow into to have the things that you want to do or have and be. If you don't actually do the work to grow there, if there's no work to grow there, then there's no value for you. Mm-hmm. You think back to when you were younger and throwing the hay on the trailer, stacking it on the trailer.
Stacking, baby.
On the trailer. You weren't throwing it. That stuff is where you formed your appreciation for the accomplishment, the achievement. That's the game changer for you. Mm-hmm. And all this other stuff it's kind of easy when you think about the exertion that you have to put yourself through compared to what you do now, the physical is not even close in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
It's a mental game. But you need those chips, right? Mm-hmm. You need to make those mental deposits so you can withdraw them when you hit the friction.
Yeah.
I've talked a lot. I'll say this one last thing and let you come back at me. It's easy to let one thing expand because that one thing happens in an instant and then you expand it until the next thing happens. And you can tell yourself that nothing is working. When you had this one thing happen at 8, you have something else happen at 2, and you have 4 good things happen between 8 and 2, but because you were so focused on the thing at 8, you missed them.
Right.
Right. And I learned this from Kaya. She would go from extremely happy to crying and sucking her thumb at the same time because she was trying to soothe. And it's like, it's almost erratic. Right. And then they can be super happy again. When you pick them up, you throw them, you kiss on them, or you blow on their belly. And it's like, well, how did they move on so quickly? Oh, because they chose to.
Yep.
Right. And that is a total game changer if you're willing to embrace it, because ruminating on it isn't going to fix it.
No. I agree with everything that you're saying. I think that, for a traditional achiever coming from nothing and trying to figure out how to never, and this is the part of me that is good, but is also very detrimental. Is my wife always asks me, what are you afraid of? And that's typically my answer, but the real answer is what we're talking about right now, is mediocrity. And when I'm not moving forward, that is moving backwards for me in my mind. Now, there is no maintain for Logan Freeman, right? And so I have to rewire my brain, and I've gotten way better at this. But now that I have a real business with $1.5 million worth of expenses in a year, there's real things that are going on. And that is just a different level of what I'll call,
pressure.
Of that pressure, right? I'm going to be a much brighter diamond at some point, but that's where it's just a new level of pressure a new level of expectation and responsibility that I have never stepped into before. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's always been about, okay, well, it begins and ends with Logan. And as we will have very soon 4 or 5 full-time employees in a real business, in an office with, like I said, major expenses, that's not just the case anymore. And I think I'm losing control of and this is okay, but I think I'm losing the control, the feeling of control that, hey, Logan's not necessarily just a one-man entrepreneur anymore. Logan now has a business that is requiring him to spend more time to be physically there, to do certain things. And, that's just new for me. That's new grounds. But I have that big goal of, compressing to $100 million. What got me here is not going to take me there. And so thinking through that, making that okay, this week was the first realization of like, all right, this is the new reality and you have to step into that or you will not go forward. So I don't know if that helped, kind of get some more insight into the way that I think about it. But, I think that just breaking that down for me was helpful, just talking through that.
Well, it gives me more to, I just want to hammer the nail all the way in, man. So the control piece is something that's going to be challenging up front, because if it's up to you, if it was to be, it was up to you, right? And think about the way that I think you handle re-raising the money, mm-hmm. right?
That's right.
It's my responsibility to make sure that it happened. And this goes to the extreme ownership space, right? And if you have multiple people doing that, then it works. Well, what happens is when you hire folks, you've got to give them the opportunity to do the thing. Now, if they let you down, of course, you're going to dive in on the fumble. But if you don't let those folks get an opportunity to do it and you just take the ball, you're going to make them do one or two things. They're going to check out and just collect the paycheck, mm-hmm. or they're going to leave because they don't feel like you trust and believe in them.
That's right.
And that for you is going to be hard.
Yep.
Because you want the outcome so bad, you're willing to do whatever it takes in order to get the outcome. And you're not convinced. And I don't know how long it's going to take for you to be convinced that this person is as committed to it as you. Mm-hmm. And if they are confused in any way, shape, or form and show you any hesitation about it, they're out. And I just don't know if I don't know if it's going to be fair. You got to make sure that you're hiring the right people. You got to make sure that the expectations are extremely clear. You've got to have the checkpoints in place so that you have an opportunity to dive on the fumble without being under immense pressure.
Right.
And I know what exacerbated this, and it was the guy pulling out such a large amount of money. And you saw how something that could have been really smooth and well-oiled create a tremendous amount of friction.
Right.
And go into a situation that's less than optimal, right? That absolutely exacerbated this. And you saw how much could actually be out of your control. And I know that you're questioning your ability to judge character. And I don't know if character is the right word, but it's the best one that I can put in here. And so hopefully nobody takes offense to that. But, at the end of the day, it's like your ability to judge whether or not somebody's actually going to do what they say they're going to do. Mm-hmm. Right. That's huge for you. And it's going to be huge for anybody you bring in FTW. And as you let stuff go so that you can work on $1,000 and $10,000 tasks, those $10 and $100 tasks are the ones that are probably most customer facing. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to ruin the brand.
Yes.
So, I understand and it's valid. It's just, and, you still got an open scar. I mean, that even after you close, it's going to be a little uncomfortable. You're probably going to raise a little more money the next go around just in case, right? So it's not as aggressive or hard because you don't ever want to experience that again.
Right.
And so just know that all of those things are confounding this one issue. And that's why the heart rate is, you're still on edge because all the money's not in the bank yet.
That's right.
But I can tell you for a fact that the money's going to get there. You're going to close, as we talked about when this first came up.
Yep.
Right. And that is the worst thing that can happen, is you don't close and you send the people's money back. Right. And whatever money's hard, you lose.
Yep.
That's the absolute worst situation. The best situation is the one that's going to be the most likely outcome. You're going to get the money in the bank, you're going to close, and you're going to move on to the next deal. And you've got that feather in your cap that, hey, we lost a huge chunk of money a couple of days before closing. We got an extension on the contract. We raised it from the network. That's phenomenal. And oh, by the way, it's going to be even better because we're making the investment in the resources to convert those folks.
Right.
Totally. You're building a system around the issue so that it doesn't happen again. And that's just the risk mitigation and protection piece of you, which is really high on your standards. So I think you're doing the right things for sure. And I think your feelings are warranted, but just know that it's potential for that to happen. Anytime you give your ball to somebody else and let them play with it, they can drop it. They can miss it. And I think, honestly, this is probably going to be the biggest difference between a cleaner and a compressor. Mm-hmm. A cleaner is going to give the ball only when they think and know that the person can hit the shot. They've proven it over and over again.
Right.
For you to scale the way you want to scale, you're going to have to give people a shot a little earlier than you might be completely comfortable with.
Yep.
And you just have to trust that your process was thorough enough that you pulled it out of them, and you see where the gaps are, and you create some type of backup system in case they don't perform.
Yeah. That's great, man. That's getting to what Perry Marshall calls the bottom of the swamp, baby. Working to the bottom of the swamp. And I just wanted to bring that up because it's definitely not something I can just ignore. It's like brute force has been my, mantra for 6 years. Last year, I did not just use brute force. There was a lot of brute force, but I got way more strategic last year. And I think you nailed it right into the coffin, man. It's like, when you got a well-oiled machine, I'm looking to February right now because February is next week. We have $17 million worth of real estate supposed to close in February. And, that's what's creating all of that pressure is, hey, if what happened on this transaction absolutely cannot go to the next one. And so I think that's another piece of it that was kind of, adding some more feelings of inadequacy because, frankly, my job is to find deals and to get the funding for them. And, when I do that successfully, I move on to the next one. However, a lot of times it's not, I always tell myself this and other people, but I forgot this week was it's not done until you get the keys and that title's in your name, you got that deed and everything is completed. So that wire is completed and is done. So I appreciate you walking through that with me, man. I got a lot more clarity around that. I can name it so I can now tame it and I can make steps towards, making the right changes and thinking about it the right way. And, we're in an integral part of this business right now where, we got 17 million. That's not going to stop. It's going to be every month. So, the fact of the matter is I'm in the business of building a business now. And that is a new territory for me. And when you build a business, you build it on people. And so now I'm going to be a leader and a people developer. And those are also bringing a whole bunch of new anxieties and feelings that, I've always told myself, I don't want to do that. But if I have a goal of getting to where I want to go, you have to, you just have to. So accepting that is we're on the first step of recovering alcoholics here. I'm a recovering solopreneur turning into a business owner, real business owner. And so the first step is acceptance, you guys. So maybe we should name the podcast today Acceptance instead of 6.8 million, but that's what the theme will be. That's the big insight that I just took away from the last 50 minutes talking through this is accepting that what happened has happened. There's opportunities to make the change going forward. But if I want to get to that $100 million mark and then 200 million and then 500 million and then $1 billion, this is the process that you go through. So I hope everybody hears what just happened was a little bit of magic now that the light bulbs are clicking on for me is, what got you here is not going to get you there. And to scale efficiently and effectively in the right way, people are going to have to be around you, and you're going to have to continue to lift other people up. So that's a big, big light bulb for me, man.
Sure, man. You are adequate.
Absolutely. 100%.
You are adequate. And if you ever need to be told that, just send me a text and say, I feel inadequate. I'll fix it for you. I promise.
All right. We're going to leave you guys with one of my favorite quotes from Pablo Picasso, the great artist. Our goals can only be reached through a vehicle of a plan in which we must fervently believe and upon which we must vigorously act. There is no other route to success. And with that being said, we are going to continue to show up every single week, going through these same concerns, challenges, big wins, big learnings live for you guys as we go on this massive journey to $100 million. I'm excited to say we'll go from 16 or 6.8 to, somewhere around 23 next month. And each, it's really a big driver for me is to rename each podcast with the closings. And so as you guys can see, I always talk about habit stacking. That's social proof, right? Because I don't want to have to be able to figure out, well, hey, we're still at 4.2. Do we call it 4.2 part 2 or what do we do? So that's another piece of me putting that out there to you guys. Jerome, you are a master. You are a master at what you do. And, it's always a pleasure and an honor to be able to tap into that brain of yours, because I know you have so much exposure to so many other different people kind of going through similar or, the same type of scenarios and yourself. So if you need to go rewind the last 10 minutes when this comes out, I'm going to rewatch it and re-listen to it at least 2 or 3 times, and always have a reminder. I don't need to text you because I'll just go back and listen to the episode. And yes, I listen to my own podcast episodes because they are fantastic. So Jerome, thank you, man. I really appreciate it this week.
Be well, my friend. It's a pleasure to serve.
Get out there and compress. Hey, compressors. If something you heard struck you, made you feel a little bit uncomfortable, good. Head on over to compressionpodcast.com. And then you can also subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts at. If you feel inclined to, please leave us a review. It's obviously helpful. But instead, I'm going to call you out today. I'm going to call you out and make sure that you do your part, sharing this message by sharing it with one person that might need to hear what we talked about today. Be great. Nothing else pays.